At 68 years old, I thought my heart was too old to feel something new. I thought those days were gone. I believed those feelings belonged to young people, not to a woman with gray hair, not to a woman who had spent most of her life caring for others. The days when my heart beat faster. The days when I looked forward to seeing someone. The days when I felt special. My name is Clara Bennett. I was 68 when I made the biggest mistake of my life. And that mistake changed my family forever. For most of my life, I was the person everyone needed. I was a wife. I was a mother. I was the person who remembered birthdays, cooked family meals, and kept everyone together. People in my town always told me, "Clara, you have such a beautiful family." I would smile and say thank you. But inside, I knew something was missing. My husband Thomas and I had been married for 46 years. Thomas was a quiet man. He worked as a truck driver for many years. He was a good man. He never left me alone when life became difficult. He worked hard to pay our bills. He fixed things around the house. He was there when we needed him. But somewhere during those years, something between us changed. We stopped talking, not because we hated each other, not because we wanted to hurt each other. Life just became busy. The conversations slowly disappeared. Our days became the same. Every morning, Thomas drank his coffee at the kitchen table. I washed the dishes. He looked at the newspaper. I looked out the window. Sometimes we sat only a few feet away from each other, but it felt like we were miles apart. At night, we watched television together, but we were not really together. He watched the screen. I looked at him, and I wondered when we stopped being a couple and became two people sharing the same house. Maybe you understand that feeling. Some marriages do not break in one day. Sometimes they become quiet, little by little. Our children were grown. Our daughter, Hannah, lived in another city with her family. Our son, Michael, visited when he could. They loved us, but they had their own lives. After they left home, the house became very quiet. Too quiet. I remember one evening sitting alone in the kitchen. The clock was making a small ticking sound. Thomas was sitting in the living room. We were both home, but I felt alone. That night, I asked myself a question I had never asked before. Is this what the rest of my life will feel like? I felt guilty for thinking that, because I had a husband, I had children, I had a home, I had many things to be thankful for. But sometimes, a person can have everything and still feel empty inside. A few months later, I started volunteering at the local library. I only went 2 days a week. I thought it would help me get out of the house. That was where I met Daniel. Daniel was 70 years old. He was a retired school history teacher. At first, he was only a friend, nothing more. He helped organize old books. I helped arrange the shelves. We talked about simple things, books, weather, old memories. But Daniel did something that surprised me. He listened. When I spoke, he looked at me. When I told a story, he remembered it. When I laughed, he laughed with me. It sounds like a small thing, but after years of feeling unseen, it felt important. One afternoon, I dropped a box of books. Daniel helped me pick them up. Then he smiled and said, "Clara, you spend so much time taking care of everyone. Do you ever take care of yourself?" I laughed, but his words stayed in my mind, because nobody had asked me that question for a very long time. After that day, I started looking forward to going to the library. I started waking up with more energy. I started smiling more. And that scared me, because I knew something was changing inside me. I was not looking for a new life. I was not trying to hurt anyone. I just liked feeling noticed again. I liked feeling like I mattered. But feelings can become dangerous when we do not understand them. Slowly, I started hiding small things. I did not tell Thomas about every conversation with Daniel. I did not tell my children how much I enjoyed those days at the library. I told myself it was only friendship. I told myself I was doing nothing wrong. But deep inside, I knew my heart was moving somewhere it should not go. The first person who noticed something different was my daughter, Hannah. She came to visit one weekend. She watched me carefully while we cooked dinner together. Then she asked, "Mom, are you happy?" I stopped cutting vegetables. I looked at her, and for a moment, I could not answer, because I did not know. That night, after everyone went to sleep, I stood near the kitchen window. I looked at my reflection in the glass. I saw an older woman, a woman who had spent years loving others, a woman who had forgotten how it felt to be seen. And that was the moment I realized something. The biggest changes in life do not always come with loud sounds. Sometimes they enter quietly. Sometimes they begin with a simple conversation. Sometimes they begin with someone making you feel special. I did not know it then, but the choice I was about to make would bring pain to the people I loved most. And it would force me to look at my entire life in a way I never expected. After that night by the kitchen window, I started feeling something I could not explain. I was happy when I went to the library, but when I came home, I felt guilty. It was like I was living two different lives. One life was the one my family knew, a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a woman who had always done the right thing. The other life was the woman inside me who was finally feeling noticed again. And that confused me more than anything. I did not want to hurt my family. That was the truth. I loved my husband. I loved my children. I loved the life we built together. But I could not ignore the fact that something inside me had been lonely for a very long time. Thomas started noticing that I was different. One evening, he came home from work and found me sitting in the living room. Usually, I would ask him about his day. That night, I was quiet. He looked at me and asked, "Is everything okay?" It was such a simple question, but I almost cried because I wanted to say everything. I wanted to tell him about the years I felt alone. I wanted to tell him about all the moments when I needed him emotionally, not just physically. I wanted to tell him that I missed the man who used to hold my hand while we walked. But instead, I just smiled and said, "I am fine." Those two words, "I am fine." I think many women my age understand those words. Sometimes we say them because we are truly okay, and sometimes we say them because we do not know how to explain the pain inside us. A few days later, Daniel and I were sitting outside the library. It was a cold afternoon. People were walking by with coats and shopping bags. Daniel looked at me and said, "Clara, you seem lost." I looked at him. Nobody had said that to me before. I asked, "What do you mean?" He said, "I feel like you are carrying something heavy, but you are pretending it is not there." I looked down at my coffee cup. Because he was right. I was carrying something, a feeling, a question, a part of myself that I had ignored for years. I asked him, "Do you think people can change after 60? He smiled gently. "People can change at any age," he said. That answer stayed with me because I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe that my life was not finished, that I was still a person with dreams and feelings. But I did not understand that every choice we make affects the people around us, especially the people who love us. A few weeks later, my son Michael came to visit. He was sitting in the kitchen while I prepared lunch. He looked around the room and then looked at me. "Mom, something feels different." My hands stopped moving. I asked, "Different how?" He took a deep breath. "I do not know. You just seem far away." That sentence hurt, because I realized my family was noticing the distance too. I thought I was hiding my feelings, but maybe I was not. Maybe the people who know us best can see the changes we try hardest to hide. That evening, after Michael left, Thomas and I sat at the dinner table. The room was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels heavy. Then Thomas said something I will never forget. "Clara, are you unhappy with me?" I looked at him. I did not expect that question. I wanted to answer quickly. I wanted to say no, but I could not, because the truth was complicated. I was unhappy. But it was not only because of him, it was because we had both stopped trying. We had both become comfortable with silence. We had both allowed our marriage to become something we never wanted it to become. I finally said, "Thomas, I feel like we lost each other." He looked down, and for the first time in years, I saw sadness on his face. Not anger, not blame, just sadness. He said, "I thought you were happy." Those words broke my heart, because I realized something. While I was feeling invisible, he was living with the belief that everything was okay. We had both been lonely, just in different ways. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed looking at the ceiling. Thomas was beside me, the same man I had shared almost half my life with. I remembered our first home, our first Christmas together, the day our children were born, the difficult years when we had almost no money, the times we laughed until our stomachs hurt. There were so many good memories. They were not fake, they were real, and that made everything harder, because Daniel represented something new, something exciting, something I had not felt in years. But Thomas represented my entire life, my family, my history, my memories. I felt trapped between my past and my feelings. The next morning, I made myself a cup of coffee and sat alone in the kitchen. I asked myself a question. Am I really in love with Daniel? Or was I simply in love with the way Daniel made me feel? That question stayed with me all day, because sometimes we do not miss a person. Sometimes we miss the version of ourselves we were before we became tired, before we became forgotten, before we stopped believing we mattered. And that was the hardest truth I had to face. I had spent so many years wanting someone to see me, but I had forgotten to see myself. I knew something had to change, but I did not know yet how much pain that change would bring. Because soon, my family would discover the truth. And when they did, the love I thought I was protecting would become the reason we all felt broken. The truth came out on a Sunday afternoon, a day that started like any other. I woke up early, I made coffee, I opened the curtains and watched the sunlight come through the windows. For a few minutes, everything felt normal. I remember thinking, maybe I can fix this before anyone gets hurt. But life does not always give us the chance to quietly repair what is broken. Sometimes the truth finds its own way out. That afternoon, my daughter Hannah called me. Her voice sounded different. She was not angry. She sounded hurt. "Mom," she said softly, "can we talk?" My heart sank. I knew something was wrong. She asked me if I had been spending time with someone. At first, I did not answer. I just sat there holding the phone. Because sometimes silence is an answer by itself. Hannah took a deep breath. "Mom, I am not asking because I want to judge you. I just want to understand." Those words made me feel even worse, because I knew she was not trying to attack me. She was trying to understand why her mother was changing. I finally told her about Daniel. I told her he was a friend. I told her he made me feel heard. I told her I never planned for things to become complicated. But I could hear the sadness in her voice. She said, "Mom, do you know how this feels for Dad?" I closed my eyes, because I did know. I just did not want to face it. After that call, I sat in my chair for a long time. I looked around the room, the same room where my children played when they were young, the same room where we opened Christmas gifts, the same room where our family took pictures. And suddenly I felt the weight of my choices. Not because I had feelings. Feelings can come without permission, but because I had allowed those feelings to become a secret. Secrets create distance, and distance creates pain. That evening, Thomas came home early. He looked tired, older somehow. He sat across from me at the kitchen table. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "I know about Daniel." My hands started shaking. I wanted to explain. I wanted him to understand. I wanted him to know that I was not trying to replace him. But before I could speak, he said something that broke my heart. "I just wish you had told me you were lonely." I looked at him, and tears filled my eyes, because that was the sentence I needed to hear years earlier. Not after everything became complicated, not after my family was hurt. Years earlier, I said, "Thomas, I did not know how to tell you." He looked at me. "Why?" I looked down, because the answer was painful, because I thought you would not care. The room became silent, a silence different from the ones we had lived with for years. This silence was full of truth. Thomas looked away. Then he whispered, "I did not know I was losing you." Those words stayed with me because I realized we had both been losing each other slowly. I had blamed him for not seeing my pain, but I had also hidden my pain. I had waited for him to notice something I never clearly showed him. The next few months were not easy. My relationship with Hannah became difficult. She still loved me, I knew that, but trust had been damaged. She told me one day, "Mom, I always thought you were the person who held everyone together." I asked, "And now?" She looked down. "Now I feel like you forgot we needed you too." Those words hurt more than anything, because a mother's greatest fear is hurting her children. I had spent my life protecting them from pain, but now I was the reason they were feeling it. I also stopped seeing Daniel during that time. Not because he was a bad person. He was not. That was the hardest part. Daniel was kind. He understood me. He cared about me. But I finally understood something important. A person can be good and still enter your life at the wrong time. I met Daniel when I was searching for a part of myself I had lost, but I needed to find that part of myself without destroying everything around me. For the first time in years, I started looking at my marriage differently. Thomas and I began talking again. Not every conversation was easy. Some were painful, some ended with tears. But we talked, really talked. We sat at the kitchen table and remembered things we had forgotten. We talked about our younger years. We talked about our mistakes. We talked about the loneliness we both carried. One night, Thomas said something I will never forget. "I miss my wife." I cried when he said that, because I realized I missed being his wife too. Not the perfect wife, not the woman who cooked every meal and kept everything organized. I missed being the woman who laughed with him, the woman who trusted him, the woman who felt close to him. Slowly, we started rebuilding, not like young couples do, not with big promises, not with dramatic changes. We rebuilt with small things, morning coffee together, short walks after dinner, asking about each other's day, holding hands again, small moments, but sometimes small moments are where love begins again. I still thought about Daniel sometimes. I think some people leave a mark on our hearts, but remembering someone does not always mean they belong in our future. Sometimes they come into our lives to show us something. Daniel showed me that I was still alive, that I still had feelings, that I still mattered, but he also showed me that I had forgotten to value the people who had loved me for decades. And slowly, I began to understand the biggest lesson of my life. Love is not only about how someone makes you feel. Love is also about the promises you make, the people who stand beside you, and the lives connected to yours. I was 68 years old when I learned that lesson. But maybe some lessons come late because we need the whole journey before we can understand them. Years have passed since that difficult time in my life. When I look back now, I still remember the pain. I remember the tears. I remember the disappointment in my children's eyes. I remember the silence between Thomas and me. But I also remember something else. I remember the moment when I finally started understanding myself. For many years, I thought my problem was that nobody saw me. I thought my pain came from being forgotten. And maybe some of that was true. But I learned something important. Sometimes we spend so much time waiting for someone else to make us feel loved that we forget to love ourselves. I was searching for a feeling I had lost, a feeling of being important, a feeling of being noticed, a feeling of being alive. Daniel gave me that feeling for a short time, but he was not the answer to everything I was missing. The truth was, I had been carrying loneliness inside me for years, and I needed to face that loneliness instead of running away from it. Thomas and I were never the same after that, but maybe that was not a bad thing. Before everything happened, we were living like two strangers. After everything happened, we finally started being honest. And honesty, even when it hurts, can sometimes save what is left. Thomas changed too, not overnight, not like a movie. Real change does not happen that way. It happens slowly, one small moment at a time. He started asking about my day, not because he felt he had to, because he wanted to know. He started sitting with me on the porch again. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we just watched the sunset. But the silence felt different. Before, our silence was empty. Now, our silence felt peaceful. One morning, I found Thomas making breakfast. That surprised me because he was never the person who cooked. He placed a plate in front of me and smiled. He said, "I know it is not perfect." I laughed, and I told him, "Neither are we." We both smiled, because for the first time in many years, we were not pretending. We were two imperfect people trying again. My relationship with Hannah also healed slowly. It took time. I understood why she was hurt. Children do not only see what parents do, they feel the changes inside the family. For a while, she wondered if our family would ever feel normal again. One afternoon, she visited me and we sat together outside. She held my hand and said, "Mom, I was angry because I thought I lost you." Those words touched my heart. I said, "I was lost too." And that was the truth. I was not only losing my family, I was losing myself. But I found my way back, not by going backward, by understanding what really mattered. When I turned 75, Thomas and I celebrated our anniversary quietly. No big party, no fancy dinner, just the two of us sitting at our old kitchen table, the same table where we had shared arguments, the same table where we had shared happy news, the same table where we had almost lost each other. Thomas reached across and held my hand. He said, "We have been through a lot." I smiled. "Yes, we have." Then he said, "But I am glad you are still here." I looked at him, and I knew exactly what he meant, not just physically, emotionally. After everything, we were still here, still choosing each other, still learning, still growing. I often think about the woman I was at 68. I do not hate her. I do not judge her. She was lonely. She was tired. She wanted to feel important again. She made choices that hurt people. But she was also a woman trying to understand her own heart. Life is complicated. People are complicated. Marriage is complicated. There are no perfect husbands. There are no perfect wives. There are only two people who have to keep choosing each other, even when things become difficult. If you are listening to my story and you feel alone in your marriage, I hope you remember something. Do not wait until your heart becomes too heavy. Speak, share your feelings, tell the person beside you what you need, because sometimes the distance between two people is not created by a lack of love. Sometimes it is created by a lack of communication. I learned that lesson later than I wish I had, but I am thankful I learned it. At 68, I thought my life was ending. I thought my best years were behind me. I thought I had already become invisible, but I was wrong. That chapter of my life was not the end. It was a turning point. It taught me about love. It taught me about forgiveness. It taught me about family. And most importantly, it taught me about myself. Today, when I look at my life, I do not see a perfect story. I see a real one, a story with mistakes, a story with pain, a story with lessons, but also a story with love. Because sometimes the greatest love story is not the one that changes your life in a moment. Sometimes it is the one that survives the moments that almost destroyed it. And after everything I lost, everything I learned, and everything I almost gave away, I finally understood something. Love is not only about finding someone who makes your heart feel alive. Love is also about protecting the hearts that have been with you all along.